everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for the Ed story. Once upon a time, there was a dad, and this dad's name was, what do you think? His name was Ed. And he had two kids, and he named the kids. Don't judge. I don't know why he named the kids this. He named the kids, the boy he named D, and the girl that he named T. And his favorite thing to do with his kids was to surprise them. So whenever anyone called them, he would surprise them. And this is how he would surprise them. If somebody said, "Hey D, come on over here," then his dad would go, "Ed!" And D would go, "Oh!" So his dad liked to yell his name, Ed. And then the same with little T. Little T would be playing around and somebody would say, "Hey T, come on over here." And the dad would peek around a corner and go, "Ed!" And little T would go, "Ah!" And that was his favorite thing to do, was to surprise them. So this story is about the ending ED. So if a base word ends with a T or a D, then when you add ED, you say Ed. Okay, so let's go over some of those words that end with a T or a D. So a base word is like the main word. It's the base word. It's just really important because it's what the word means, right? So here's one of the base words, end. Okay, now this is cool because watch this. I'm going to change it into a different word, end, ed. Did you hear the ed in that word? Ended, ended. So when you add an ED in a word that ends with a D, you're going to say ed for ED. Here's another word that ends with a T. Invent. That's a chunky monkey word, right? Well, look, it ends with a T. So when we add ED, we're going to say ed. Okay? Invent, ed. So when we talk about a base word ending with a D or a T, we go like this. We do a base. Can you show me a base? Put your hand in a fist. Okay, so do this with me. Ready? When a base word ends with a T or a D, then you add ED, ed. Okay, let's do it again. Ready? When a base word ends with a T or a D, then you add ED, ed. Great. Okay, now we're going to talk about what if your base word doesn't end with a T or a D? What do you do then? Well, let's figure that out. There's two kinds of sounds that consonants make. One is called a voiced sound. So if you put your hand on your neck and say the sound ready? You're going to feel your neck kind of vibrate. It's kind of wiggle like that, right? What are some other consonants? Remember, consonants are not vowels. They're all the other letters that maybe might make your voice vibrate or wiggle a little. Let's see. G, g, g. Yeah, G does it too. What about some other ones? How about Z? Ready? Z. Yeah, that makes it vibrate. Well, guess what? If your base word ends with a voiced sound, something that makes your vocal cords vibrate and your neck kind of wiggle, then when we add ED, we say D. So let me show you some examples. We're going to make a base word here, hug. Okay, now when you add an ED, you've got to add another G, otherwise it's going to be huged, because that E is going to turn into super E. So we're going to add another G, then we're going to add the base word ED. Okay, let's try it with ed. Ready? Hugged. I hugged my friend. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Guess what it is? It's hugged. Okay, so unless it ends with a D or a T, the ED doesn't say the normal sound. So here the ED is going to say just the D sound. So I'm going to write a D here. All right? It ends with a voiced sound. Hugged. Okay? So what we do for that is we go, when a base word ends with a voiced sound, then you add E, D, D. Okay, so we're not going to put ed there. We're going to put D if it ends with something that's voiced. Okay? All right, ready? We're going to do it again. When a base word ends with a voiced sound, then you add ed, D. All right, so now let's talk about the other consonants that don't make your neck vibrate. What if you said, ready? Put your hand on your, let's try it again. Nothing. How about, ready? No, those are called unvoiced sounds. They're kind of like when you whisper, okay? So let's try a couple of base words with unvoiced sounds. They end with unvoiced sounds. This one ends with a voice sound. Okay, here's one that ends with an unvoiced sound. Ready? Jump, jump. Okay, let's try ed. Ready? Doesn't end with a T or a D, right? But we'll try it just to see. Jump ed. I jump it on the tramp. That doesn't work. What should it be? Jumped. I jumped on the tramp. Oh, so if a base word ends with an unvoiced sound, then you add ed and it says t, like tickling turtle, right? So look, it ends with a p, p. Oh, that doesn't make my voice vibrate at all. Okay, so let's do this one. Here's the voiced sound here. And we'll put the ed up here. If a base word ends with a T or a D, and we'll put the unvoiced sound there. You ready? Let's do the unvoiced sound. When a base word ends with that unvoiced sound, then you add ed, t. Okay, let's do it one more time. Ready? When a base word ends with an unvoiced sound, then you add ed, t. All right. Now you know, if there's an ed, you just look at the end of the base word. And if you have a T or a D, you're good to go. It just says ed, right? But if you have something that's not a T or a D that the base word ends with, you're going to say a D or a T instead of ed. So thanks for joining me for ED. We're going to be working on this for a whole month, okay? For the rest of the month anyway. Have a great week. Bye.